Welcome to SerialPodcastNine.
All right. You guys introduce yourself like we do on a podcast.
Hello,
Good evening,
my name is.
Go ahead, you go first.
No, you go first.
Good evening, I'm Gerard Peralta.
Hello, and I'm Kevin Peterson.
I'm Ryan Benoit, and this is SerialPodcastNine. Welcome to the show.
The big show.
Yeah, we've been shouting at each other for an hour and 10 minutes, but all right. Actually, we got a question. We're going to just dive right in. We got a question, and I thought it was an interesting what if question. So our friend 2JZ_Nagini.
Yeah.
I'm not fluent in the Harry Potter languages, but that's the snake from Harry Potter, right, Gerard?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah. He's actually swapping his Aristo to a 6-speed. I believe he bought the kit from
he's doing the CD Pro swap right now.
Yeah, very excited for that. All right. So he said, "Hey Ryan, I was listening to the podcast on my way home today, and I had a question. What's the best country / province / state that has the best laws for modifying cars? Where would you and the boys live to build the rowdiest cars without worrying about the popo?" And I thought that was a very fun question. Based on all the things we've been shouting about, I'm fully down for it. Where would you live?
I would think in Canada, Alberta.
Oh yeah, that was my answer too.
Yeah, like you can definitely, and then for the states, I would say like Florida and Washington have
Washington?
Washington's got very relaxed rules and
That's not surprising to me. Where would you live in? So to take this a step further, where would you live? Let's do the U.S. first. Where would you live in the U.S.?
California.
All things considered. California has the hardest rules.
but they have the biggest scene too.
Yeah, and I mean that's where if you take the geography and the scene and obviously I would want to live by the sea, by the ocean. I would want to live where it's beautiful. I feel like California is that maybe.
I live in California, but have my car insured in Nevada. I feel
pretty sure Nevada can get away with anything.
I'm pretty sure Nevada's pretty lenient as well.
That's interesting. So you would forget, and I think that's an interesting thing though to actually think about. That is that we're all maybe old enough that we wouldn't just live somewhere for the sake of cars. We would live somewhere for.
I just deal with it.
I mean, you could take a cool car and take it to a cool place,
Yeah,
I've never been to Florida, and I don't know how crazy it is, as far as heat and all that stuff. But I mean, it looks like a nice place. It looks super dope there, but there's got to be a reason why it's not the same as California. Maybe it's just way more hot and way more humid.
It's like an East Coast thing.
I don't know what
Florida
that means,
man.
but
I blame.
Yeah, it's
Florida,
just it's just humid, and I swear it's further south than Cali is.
I think that's what it is. It's just it's like Cali, but turned up to 12. So you're kind of just it's a bit difficult to live there as far as heat and humidity and all that, crocodiles and all that other stuff. But it's probably super dope, in certain areas.
Is it crocodiles or alligators?
Probably fucking both.
Yeah, they got more. Both.
They got everything there, man.
Crocodigators, they got everything.
Yeah.
All the crazy birds.
You could own a compound.
It's basically like the
Florida.
Australia of North America.
Yeah, of North America.
You could have a SerialNine compound in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, for the price of what LZ paid. Yeah, I mean,
you're just out here buying a house like a sucker. You could have bought a whole compound.
Yeah, basically, it's almost the same price, really. So
why didn't anyone
there was that property in Prince George that was like a go-kart track and a drive-in movie and like a putt-putt golf course and I had a forest on it, and it was like $400,000. But it's also in Prince George, so
exactly. You'd have to spend the rest of your $4 million on building things other than your house to do in Prince George.
Nobody said Texas, hey? No takers for Texas.
No, why?
I mean, Texas is pretty cool.
I imagine I could live in Austin.
I don't know anything really much about them. I have lots of friends from Texas.
Ryan would like Austin.
It's the Portland of Texas.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe as far as did they have water there?
Yeah, they're on like the Gulf of Mexico,
Oh,
Yeah.
that's probably pretty cool.
but it's only like
they
the
have
far east of Texas.
They got a drift scene there too, don't they?
Yeah, they got a huge drift scene
Yeah,
and like
huge.
roll racing, 2-mile racing,
Yeah.
highway racing.
Texas 2K.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
do-
I guess
they do
that's
a
the
big-
thing is like if I'm into cars and I love cars, but like, yeah, it's weird because I sometimes feel like I'm probably more into cars than a lot of people, but I'm not going to have like the like drifting around me wedding photos, and I'm probably not going to move somewhere just for the car scene. You know what I mean?
No, that's fair.
Someone should call in and tell and who got drifting wedding photos and tell us how awesome it was, because I also think that's the stupidest shit in the world.
Yeah,
Right,
I don't know.
I know
Like,
people that have done that.
Yeah, well, there, get them to call in. Were you the
All right,
photographer?
yeah. No, I didn't.
No.
Know they were
yeah, it's
happening.
weird because like, yeah, I don't know why I don't think that's that cool. I kind of just definitely don't think it's the greatest, but at the same time,
Same
maybe it's
reason
just
you don't think a shirt that has a giant turbo on it is cool. It's because you compartmentalize your life like a
Does it
fucking
say
adult. That's why.
on the back?
Yeah, like, yeah, that's exactly.
yeah,
it.
maybe
It's a
the wedding is a wedding and the car drifting is car drifting. Like if I'm gonna leave the wedding in my sick car and do a burnout, maybe, but like I just don't know about leaving the like, having the people drifting around me and taking the wedding photos. My wife's probably just like,
Yeah,
all this
Gerard, you would
tire
never
smoke
do-
in her face.
I think that's
like,
another that's another interesting question though. Like you got a cool car, you're getting married. Like, do you like take your own cool car to your wedding? Do you have all
Yeah.
all your friends' cool cars? It's like
I mean,
in the
when I
wedding party.
imagined,
Ooh,
You just get a
actually,
limo?
you know what? Eric Zapata and
Yeah,
Shay
they
when
had
they
that.
got married, it wasn't that they did that, but like their parking lot was full on like
a car show.
full of like fucking cool cars. Like the who's who of the Calgary car scene was there, and I was like, I had my camera. I wasn't shooting their wedding, but I was like, yo, I know there's gonna be like dope shit here.
Yeah.
And there was dope shit, but it was like because that was the life that those people lived, and they drove it to the. Nothing about their wedding was about cars.
Wedding.
It was
Cars,
just like,
yeah.
it was just about. It was like a side thing where it was like, yo, Zap and Shay know some dope fucking people, and like there's some dope shit in this parking lot, But
Yeah,
it was a Hawaiian themed wedding.
I just don't. I kind of like, I guess when I was younger, envisioning my wedding, never did cars become a part of it. Like I had some grandiose wedding plans, but like nothing to do with cars. Like there were like wolves and like snow and like fire and shit, like, but no
So
cars.
you just really like Game of Thrones is what I'm
Gerard
basically
when
before
Gerard was
Game
a
of
little
Thrones
boy
came out.
imagining his wedding.
Yeah.
Before Game of Thrones came out, I imagined a Game of Thrones wedding. I was like, yeah, that's gonna be sick. No, it was like, okay, Game of Thrones crossed with like James Bond. So yeah.
Oh. So an
But, like,
Aston Martin or a BMW?
No, like everybody had to go away somewhere that was like really kind of secluded and like in the winter, and like you couldn't, like you're there for like the weekend and shit. And then the wedding was outside in like this crazy, fire lit walkway, and like, it was nuts.
In your mind, did your wedding?
Yeah, in my mind.
like that?
No, my wedding was vastly different, but my wedding was also pretty cool. So, but yeah, everyone had to wear like fur coats and shit in my wedding.
Not your real wedding, like
No.
in your imaginary wedding.
My imaginary wedding.
I got married in Vancouver before I lived here, and I got married at one of the mansions on the Crescent. I don't know. Anyway, I got married
Crescent.
there.
Shaughnessy Park.
Shaughnessy. Yeah, I got married in Shaughnessy.
Oh, okay, yeah. Shaughnessy, Vancouver, not Shaughnessy, Coquitlam.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, the real
I
Shaughnessy.
mean, it's still pretty nice though. Anyways, yeah.
All right. Anyway, and in my mind, I was like, oh, maybe I could find someone that has like a cool car and we could use it, and like for like the car that drives us away after the wedding ceremony. And then even then, I just didn't care enough to be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I found that. Like I was just like, I don't care that much. Like all my car friends at the time were there, and that was good enough for me. Like for the most part, because I made people travel to Vancouver for me to get married. So I I didn't incorporate cars into my wedding at all, except for like.
How did we start talking about weddings and cars when the question was about? Okay.
I feel like
I
it
don't
was.
know how
I feel
we
like it
got there.
transitioned. I transitioned it
Yeah.
because you. Yeah,
Well, I didn't even-
you were like, oh, the like drifting around the wedding.
Right.
photo. And then yeah.
Because you said
I don't even
you
remember what
wouldn't
the
make
question
your life-
was.
Where would you live?
Oh, right.
You're not
Yeah,
gonna,
where
you're
would
not,
you
it's-
live?
yeah,
Right,
you
right,
care about
okay.
cars more
And-
than most people, but you're not gonna like.
Yeah.
And like, I do actually think that the right answer to this question, like if you really, really, really cared about cars and that was your whole life, I think the right answer is Florida. Depending, right? So, and I'm basing that on Adam LZ.
What about Canada?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I
I didn't even say where I'd live in the US. I'll tell you where I'd live
Yeah,
in
like-
Canada.
spit it
Okay.
out, bud.
Well, I want to say if it was the US, I would pick Portland. I don't know if it's
No, let's hope we have some Portland listeners right now. They're just be like, "Yo, buddy, fuck that." Anyways, go on,
Portland's got so much beer, Gerard. It'll be great. They got Great Notion Brewery.
dude. They got rid of Montage. I got nothing left in Portland. Montage is gone. Boo. See you later.
Whatever.
And the beignets are gone. Beignets. And
I
Montage
got
are
Great
gone.
Notion Brewing. I'm okay. That's where I would go because I really like the Pacific Northwest. I think the Pacific Northwest is amazing, and I think that like from Pemberton to Portland, all of that is generally pretty great.
Pemberton is in BC.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm saying
Oh.
whoop, whoop, whoop. All those however
Cascadia,
many-
bro.
Yeah. That should be its own country. I don't know much about politics, but let's
This
make
for
that
me, the
clear.
weather.
I just play one on TV.
can kind of fuck
Yeah.
off. So
The
the weather's
can
similar
fuck
to
off?
what we. Yeah, it's not like I mean, if I'm moving somewhere
This-
already, like I'm gonna move
still
somewhere
got-
that's like, huh?
Yeah, but you still got seasons, which is nice. I think Portland would be nice because, like, I mean, hoping Park doesn't go anywhere. But
I mean, they
maybe,
just
don't
made
know.
a post that said that like all 22 events are canceled, basically.
Well, fuck me then.
Yeah,
Guess I'm just going for the beer.
it says
So you're not
we are
gonna.
currently in a battle. Blah 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 blah. There are no scheduled drift events for 2022 season. Thank you for the community for the support over the years. We really appreciate everything, and we'll keep you posted.
You're dropping like flies, bro.
Yep.
Oof, we're fighting an uphill battle. All right. Well, I still would probably, off the top, if I had to just roll.
So you're gonna pick a place because of the beer,
in the food.
the food. Okay.
Portland food is amazing. I don't know where you've been.
I know. I know. Why do you think I go to Portland, man?
Well, I don't know.
For the fucking food.
Yeah,
Obviously,
of course I would
it's not
pick a
for the
place
beer.
for beer and food. I don't think I could afford Seattle. And Seattle,
Why the hell would you ever want to live in Seattle, dude? Seattle sucks.
okay, well, one, we have many friends that live in Seattle, so take that back in the name of their honor.
But that's just happenstance. They didn't like. Nobody like was like, "Yo, I want to move to Seattle." Like, okay, sure.
People for sure want to move to Seattle. But there's tons of like giant tech companies there. You and I live in two different worlds, and it blows my mind. Okay. Anyway.
But I mean, they're moving there for the tech companies and the jobs. They're not moving there for the geography and the dope city.
Seattle
It's
is
not beautiful. There's nothing
No.
beautiful about Seattle.
Well, no, there's parts that are nice.
There are parts
But-
that are nice, but it's
Nice,
yeah,
yes.
not
It is big. and
honestly
it's a lot
everything
of
around Seattle is very nice.
Yeah.
Seattle itself is not very nice.
driving. No,
Exactly.
yeah, it's a lot of driving. That's what I.
And
think.
also, like,
And-
you can ask your friends or the people that we know that are the tech company people, do they live in Seattle? They
Oh, I don't know
probably
any of those. I don't. Well, no, they would because they're tech.
No, they would probably live in like Bellevue or all the outskirts of Seattle.
Unless they're the CEO of the tech company, they're probably not like living up in Bellevue.
I don't
Well,
know.
Bellevue's not that crazy.
Bellevue is like one of the most expensive suburbs of Seattle, is it not?
Ah,
Yeah.
I
but
wish we were,
you also live in
I wish-
Vancouver, Kevin. So,
Yeah, but I don't live in the
wish-
British properties.
I mean, Bellevue is not the British property.
well, that's
for sure.
isn't that North Vancouver, Kevin? That's a different thing. Than Vancouver. I wish we were a
Anyways.
real estate podcast. All right. In Canada, I'm with Kevin. The answer is Alberta. You go to Alberta. Alberta, I actually think like I would go to Calgary. And I actually think Calgary has maybe one of the better car scenes in Canada.
Yeah, I'd say so. But I mean, yeah, I guess for me, I would,
Where would
if
you
I
go
had
in
to,
Canada?
if I had to move somewhere just for like the cars, like to have a sick, crazy car.
Calgary
I,
isn't that bad. You know
but I mean,
so many people there.
I know, but what I'd probably just move to like Penticton or something.
Yeah, honestly,
You know what I mean? Like,
I was gonna say
I'm not going to move
Penticton.
to Alberta because I need a sick car. Like, you
I
just
think
need
it
to
was
move out of
province.
Vancouver
BC, man.
proper, not even out of
Yeah.
BC. Like, I don't know, you move to Langley and have a sick
Yeah,
car.
that's kind of what I mean. Is that you can,
Like any kind of anywhere where you're kind of in the boonies a little bit,
Yeah.
you can also
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
have a sick car. You can't be like a complete scraper because the roads probably won't allow it. But
If I gave you an unlimited budget and you had to have 3 houses around the world or 3 properties around the world, where would you choose?
I think that's
Go.
fully
unlimited budget.
Yeah, and just like I don't want you to tell me what they would be. Just pick the 3 areas you would live.
Probably have one in Bali.
Okay.
Or
Bali.
I mean, I maybe there's other places in Indonesia or whatever that I would be, but like I like the vibe in Bali. Like in the first place we went to was like super dope. So I'd have one in Bali. That's like the escape place.
Would you do car stuff there or no?
Yeah, you could do car stuff there. I mean,
Okay.
Indonesia, not in Bali, but like Indonesia generally has a massive car scene, and like their cars are ridiculous.
Okay. Good. Okay, so
We
that's
won't-
one.
That's one. I mean, I'd probably still have a house here, man. I love it
Oh,
here.
that's the right answer. Good.
So I'd have one here, and then one would
In
probably
Surrey or Vancouver?
I mean, if money was no object, I might live in Vancouver.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like I've always wanted to live in Vancouver, but like the older I get, the less I want to live in Vancouver.
That's
Because
fair.
I've sort of moved like south instead of north.
Number 3.
Yeah, I don't know where the third place would be. I would assume someplace in the States, but maybe kind of fuck that. What if I just had a place in Europe or like, you know, where you can drive around all the European sort of countries and stuff? That'd be sick. I'd probably be there. Because like, what am I going to do?
Where just Europe.
Well, I don't know. I honestly have never been there, man. So
Okay, good. Kevin, if I gave you unlimited budget, you get 3 properties, and it has to encompass your car living lifestyle. Not in every property, but where would you go?
I honestly like Gerard said, I would probably pick somewhere in like Southeast Asia where it's like hot and tropical, and like, you know, just because that is different from here and would be a nice change. But I also, like Gerard said, I do think I would like a place here.
Yeah.
And then my other choice was somewhere like one of those like Scandinavian countries, but that's like definitely not good for the car scene.
no, they
like,
are.
dude,
Yeah,
I mean, the dudes love. No, it's just like super expensive.
but I mean, it costs no object at this point.
That's what I mean. I guess cost an
No,
object, right?
no. The property is no object. Your lifestyle going with it, like you don't get to change the laws.
So one of my properties will be the country of Brazil, and then I'll just sell that, and I'll have infinite money for my hobbies in Norway.
Now you have 2 yeah, all right, okay, I see what you clever answer. Man, I think I would still live in the Vancouver area. Money's no object. The problem with living in Vancouver is obviously the police. You can't change that. I feel like if you were,
But if you have money's no object, what the fuck do you care? Just pay for it all.
Just for the property, Gerard. I give you a free property, not that you're a millionaire. I give you 3 free properties. So maybe I feel like if you were on the North Shore, you'd be a bit better off. So maybe I could live on the North.
You'd never want to live on the North Shore, man. When's the last time you drove to the North Shore?
I go to the North Shore all the time. Yeah.
Twice,
how long did it take you to get home?
Sunday.
Fucking takes forever to get on and off the North Shore.
20 minutes, man. I would probably do that. I might actually take a property in Tofino, which is crazy. Tofino or Portland, and then maybe one in Europe, like you guys said, but like Italy, somewhere in Italy would be all right. Or I visited Germany once, and I liked Germany a decent amount. And fun fact, Gerard, they got beer in Germany. So
jeez, I didn't know that. My my friend in Germany the other day, not the other day, but like some time ago, long time. She was like, "Oh, I'm taking a beer bath." I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, a beer bath." I'm like, "Okay, that sounds fucking gross." But she's like, "Yeah, it's really awesome." Like, blah blah blah. I'm like, "You do you, man."
You do.
Maybe you like a beer bath, Ryan.
What about an oatmeal
No,
bath
I've been
or a
to
milk
Germany.
bath or a mustard bath or
Nah.
None of those interest me.
I was in home of BMW country.
Munich.
And yeah, I was in Munich, and Munich was great. You can walk around and drink on the street, and nobody says
That's so
anything.
fun. You could do that in the States, man. You could do that literally across the border.
You can't walk around with open liquor anywhere.
I mean, it's not
you
legal.
I mean, it's not legal. Then you could do anything anywhere with that attitude.
Yeah. You can just murder someone as long as you don't get caught.
It's legal in
Vegas.
it's legal in Nevada. Yeah.
It's legal in Vegas.
I
don't.
I don't know if it actually is or if they just turn a blind eye. So someone can write in and tell me. But I was told that they just don't do anything about it.
Like smoking weed in Vancouver before it was legal. Like
exactly. It's like, look, this is our bread and butter. The Strip is the only like place you're allowed to do this. Go nuts.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, but I do think Calgary, if you love cars and don't want to worry about regulations, I think Alberta is the answer.
But you only get to enjoy your car half the year.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you do it, you fucking love it. And then you're like the other dudes and you buy like a cool winter car and then you just go winter drift your car, which Gerard loves to do. And then you get Chinook weather and then they name a mall after it. I don't know. Dave Vickers will fill us in. He'll tell me about it.
We talked about this for like a really long time.
We really did it.
We needed to
cut out most of it. Yeah, we did need to.
Okay.
Do we have anything car related we can talk about? Actually, I have a question. If you don't have something, I'll have a question.
Yeah, question it out.
When were your glory days for cars?
That's a really difficult
like the good old
question.
days?
What are the good old days?
Because you don't know what the future holds.
Oof, that's deep, Gerard. But what if it's all downhill from here? What if it'll never be as good as it was?
Well, then I'll tell you when my glory days were when I'm dying.
Well, okay. Well,
if you had to pick something up till now,
right now, like, do you think you're living in your glory days right now?
By that definition, yeah, you should feel that right now is the best it's ever been, and it's only getting better. So then,
I mean, when I had my Cressida and we were drifting a bunch, and I was building my Cressida, because like I had nothing else going on in my life besides a little bit of SerialNine, and like you go to work, make a bunch of money, buy some parts, build your car, go drifting, press repeat. That's it. Hang out with your friends, go drifting. Basically, I don't know how old I was. I was probably late 20s, early 30s. And that's what my life was about, was like drifting and partying. I don't know. As far as cars wise, that was cool because, but I mean, at the same time, the Aristo in like 2019 was like, I don't know how much I drifted the Aristo, but it was a lot. And the Aristo is like kind of way crazier than the Cressida ever was. Yeah. Not to mention I had my own company who like made every single part on the Aristo. And we went to Final Bout, which is like kind of a big deal. And it was in Chicago, which is kind of a big deal. And like we drove there, which is kind of a big deal. We drove in Chicago, which is kind of a big deal. So like that was only like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What about you?
I was kind of talking about that today, where there was that time where like I just had the Cressida and was going down and like drifting every 2 weeks in the States, and like it was definitely a totally different vibe from now.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time I had one car that was my everything. I had to drive it to the event. I had to drive it to work on Monday after drifting it all weekend, and like that is something as well. But like it's also kind of cool, having multiple cars, like having a car that's just sitting there that I can go drift whenever I want it, and I have another project I'm working on, and and yeah, like being able to have a vision and then realize it, and be like, I want to make parts for this car, and then make them for that car, and then have the car. It's like definitely like a really cool feeling, and it feels like that part of the company and like that part of the car, whatever, like journey is growing for us. It's not like the same stage of, hey, this one car is my entire life, and that is a really fun time too. But like, yeah, like the future should be exciting as well.
Yeah, because like the question's pretty good. The question's interesting too, because like I guess the other question would be like, yeah, where do you see the future of your car, whatever you want to call it, journey? I guess like what is your dream or your goal for your car journey? And like if you ask like what's the best your glory days or whatever, like, and maybe you think the future is going to be them, like why? Like what is it that you think is going to happen in the future that's going to make it so dope? That's the other part of the question.
Do you have an answer for that? What would make it so dope?
I do. I don't know. I'm asking Kevin. I figured
I feel like I just kind of touched on that, where it's just like, it feels like we're getting to the point of the company where like we can be like, this is, we want to make these parts for this vehicle, and like then we realize that happening, and it, you see them and they're right there in front of you, and yeah, it's really cool to be able to like pick a vehicle and then develop these parts for that vehicle, and like that our development ability has just gone through the roof lately. So it's just it feels like a really cool, exciting time to think about new vehicles and that sort of stuff. Like it seems like maybe things in the past where we're like, yo, like I want to do this or I have this idea, it was like, yeah, that's all well and good, but it's not going to go anywhere. Where now it seems like there is some traction,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I sort of agree, except for the fact with me, I think the biggest sort of like limiting factor to making my car journey sort of realize is money. So I feel like once I have like significantly more money, my car journey is gonna and time. So like right now, for reference, I got 3 kids. They're aged 1, 6, and 8. So like, time is a little bit sort of strapped right now, and money isn't exactly like the best. Obviously, you're making like decent money, but like, it's not like I can be like, oh, I'm going to have a project of $60,000 on this, like, I don't know, like Honda shuttle build with a K series or something like that, or whatever, whatever. Like, let's say you have project A, you're like, oh, I'm going to spend 50 grand on that. And like, it's going to take this amount of time. Like for me, I just envision the future as like, I have a project, I have the money, I have the time, and I want to just build it. And like, whether that has anything to do with SerialNine or not, like in my world, it kind of doesn't, because I sort of view SerialNine as one thing and like my car building dreams and visions as something else, even though they obviously are totally intertwined. But I do have probably like 4 or 5 project cars that I wish I could just build them just like that. Or let's say I had I had enough money. I was like, yo, that new Zed, sick. I'm going to buy that. I'm just going to like build a shed of it. And like, 6 months later, 1 year later, I got the craziest brand new car possible. And I can just drive it. Or just being able to choose any car you want to buy as a project car. Like, you want an M4, buy it. You want a Lamborghini, buy it. You know what I mean? That would be my sort of like, I've made it,
Here's the thing though, is that, are those the stories that you would tell? I don't know if we would do a we would do a podcast and you would probably talk about like how you're building this crazy Zed, but like,
I mean, the Zed's like the least like interesting example, right? Like,
I just mean what the meat and potatoes of this is like you guys coming up and you being like, I overbuilt my fucking turbo line, like the oil lines for my turbo, and I got stuck on the side of the road in Washington. Like, those are in theory your glory days, like when you were like, we're all saying like, well, actually, we're not all saying. I haven't said anything in a bit. Is that
like, what if I'm building a car with my son? That's like,
Yeah, that's a.
You know what I mean? My son's building a car. Like the first day I get to drift with my kid. That's like a huge thing. Way more over surpassing than like, you know, breaking down with I mean, they're all good too. Everything's a good story. You know what I mean?
But I think glory days are determined by the stories that we tell. And so like the blue sky story that you guys both said is like, you get to kind of do what you want. And that is cool. And there's a lot of content there. But I think like maybe the things that make you or define you are like the things that you kind of.
I agree that maybe the hard times are what make you or define you. But like when
I don't
I'm
even think they're hard times. Though,
I'm just like you said, that story of the turbo drain getting wrecked and we had to like drive back here and get the car and like blah 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 blah, or like like we get pulled in at the border and they make us go over this crazy speed bump and like Gerard's bumper rips off and my exhaust rips off and then they're yelling at us we can't stop there, and it's like those are all funny stories and stuff. But like when I'm thinking about the good old days and the good times, I'm thinking about the good times. Like those are funny stories and like they're good, great memories, but they're not like the best of times. They're just like something that happened along the way, What's
the best of times?
I don't know, like I said, like when I was traveling around with my car and going to all these drift events and like doing the actual thing that I like to do, not the like funny things that like screwed up and prevented me and made the story funny.
Right.
The fact that I was ripping on the highway with like 20 drift cars in Chicago is definitely like a pretty huge thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a huge
one. Do you know that?
And one thing I will say about that is I had an issue that was plaguing me while that was happening, and it was super stressful, and I wasn't having fun.
Yeah,
and like,
he was having a totally different time than I was.
Yeah, exactly. And it, in the end, that was still an amazing memory, and I love it. But like, if I could have done without that part of the story, totally would have done it.
Yeah.
Did it make the whole thing better somehow?
No.
Not really.
No. For sure.
Does it make a better story maybe to tell later? Sure.
I'm all about the stories, boys. Do you know when you're in it that like you're in a good moment? Do you know that?
Yes, 100%. I do.
Yeah. Like it's the glory days. Like you like look at it and you're like, it's gonna like you take a mental picture like and it goes in the old memory bank and you remember it. Mm-hmm. I work with people that have that analogy, and that's why I like to use that, where it's like things will never be this good again.
I mean, even for example, this winter, like I've never had a modified car, let alone like I've always wanted like a Jay-Z powered modified like sick ass car to winter drift. And it's like I had like, whatever, like a 1JZ 6-speed, pretty crazy JZX 110 that I literally drove every single day in the wintertime. And like, -10, -20 through the salt, drifting it, like in the rain, whatever. Like that's pretty sick too. Like it's not like the craziest memory. Like it doesn't totally compare to driving my 600 horse drift car in a totally other country and date with other people. But like at the same time, like I've had, how many winters have I had? 45 winters, and I've never had like a super sick car like that to drift in the snow. I love snow drifting.
Vancouver doesn't get real.
What about the Verosa? Is that not modified?
Verosa was automatic, totally stock, right? But yeah, I mean, it was definitely pretty close. Honestly,
I feel like like knowing when the good old days or like the the best times were, like I feel that like I maybe it's not as easy for me as it is for Gerard, but like I do feel like I'm a pretty grateful person, so I'm able to appreciate, like if something great is happening in front of me, I'm fully like appreciating that greatness, whether I'm like, yo, I'm gonna look back on this forever as being great. I don't know if I ever think that in the moment. I just try and appreciate the moment, I guess, but it's not until I look back that I'm like, that really stuck out or keeps sticking out, or
I think so.
Go on.
Sorry. No, because I was just going to make fun of you, and it's not worth it. I want you to roll with it. Go on.
I was gonna say it's funny you say that because, like, for example, the stereo thing, like, like you're like, oh, I never had a stereo in my car and stuff, and like for me, it's like part of those experiences is the music, and I have to have that music be part of that experience, and I know like the like the key factors to making experiences good, and like the music is one of them. So that's why it's important for me to have, like, I just bought a complete system for the Blit. But I was gonna say, like, glory days of cars, like, honestly, like when I got my Xterra, when it was lifted on the 33s and the wide Dune Masters, and it was like the first truck I ever had, and it was the first fully amplified stereo I ever had, and like driving that truck around through 18 inches of snow and stuff was like amazing. Like that truck, like that was like a whole other world. And like I drifted it in the snow because it's like sick, and like you drive through all this shit, you pull out buses with chains, and like you're just doing all this other cool shit, and it's like, yeah, that's a whole high level experience in its own. Totally, sort of not really to do with cars, but it's an automotive thing, obviously. But like,
sure, yeah. So, and it's funny because I guess I thought of this because 2JZ Nagini was asking us like, hey, like where would be the best place to live and all that stuff. But it's like, I don't know.
Where you are is the best place to live, really. So.
Wow, yeah. But I don't know if much of that matters as much. It's kind of like, I don't know. This is a little bit much, but whatever. Yeah, it's like probably you're probably in your prime right now, like doing the things that you love, and it seems like there's all these things in your way and you can't fully realize your dream. But maybe at the end of the day, that those end up being the times that you remember the most. I don't know. I go through peaks and valleys, so I have like the ups and downs, and my life is cataloged into like different eras. Mm-hmm. But I didn't drive, I did media, so like that makes sense, right? So like I could be like, well, this is the Hot Boys era of my life, and then this is the Good Vibes era of my life, and this is the SerialNine era of my life. And you probably don't like remember the the boring shit in between, but like I have a very vivid memory of standing on like a fucking cart track in Lumsden, Saskatchewan, being like, yo, it probably won't get much better than this. Like just being like, and that sounds really dumb, but I still look back at that and like, and I remember that very vividly, standing on this cart track after like all of my friends that have now grown up and done different things with their lives have like drifted there and been like, this won't last forever and you should cherish the moment while you have it. But I don't think everybody has the ability to realize how they're like in that when it's happening. And I've had moments that have come after that where I'm like, oh, this is really great, but it probably won't last forever. And that's why I asked you guys that. So what advice would you give to a younger generation coming up?
Oh, as far as like experiences and stuff?
Yeah. Like, what do you think? Because I think we had this conversation. We like kind of got into it a little bit in the Young Guns episode with Satoshi, where we're like, hey, you're about to go through some shit and it's going to be amazing. But what advice would you give to like the younger generation coming up about like, I don't know, if you could go back and do it again, what would you change? What would you acknowledge? What would you do differently? Like, what is the experience?
I mean, there's so many. I mean, when you're looking back, like every mistake is so glaringly obvious, and
I don't know what advice would I give is just live it, man. Just do like what you're most passionate about and do it to the most of your, because like, yeah, like honestly, I guess I'm older than everybody here. I've been doing this shit probably longer than most people here, but like time is, I don't even know how to describe it, man. Like time is literally the
fleeting,
the most
of the
fleet. Yeah. Yeah. Like it's literally just like falling away as we speak. And like, yeah, don't fuck
Band
around.
through the hourglass. No, I get it.
Just don't fuck around. Just do what you love and do it the most that you can. Because like, you
Yeah,
snap your fingers.
you can never buy time.
Yeah, man. Like, you're only 20 once. You're only 25 once. You're only 28 once. Whatever the fuck you want to do in that time, and like with cars or with anything, just do it, man. And like, there's going to be a time when, you know, your life's going to be completely different than 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 2 years ago. And like, you aren't going to be able to do that stuff anymore the same way. Like, you know, I still ride motorcycles. I still drive cars, whatever. But like, me going drifting,
motorcycle?
I haven't in a long time.
Yeah.
But,
so even then, you'll say you do a thing that you don't do anyway. Come on.
I just had a kid. There's no time.
I don't want you to ride your motorcycle.
Anyways, what I'm saying is, yeah,
I don't want you to rode your motorcycle.
Us going drifting now, regardless if it's the same as before, like going through the motions, it's not the same as going drifting when you're 20 whatever years old. It's totally not the same. You didn't stay up the entire night before putting fucking valves in your JZ. You didn't fire it up at 3 a.m. and do donuts in your cul-de-sac. You didn't like not sleep and like drink a bunch of fucking Red Bull or something just to get to the track. You didn't get to the track late and like lace the track like a fucking G. And then everyone's just like, oh, what is that? What kind of car is that? You know, like, that shit doesn't happen again. You just do the best you can at all times or whatever. I don't know. That's it.
Yeah. Because that's the kind of the thing. It's like, I feel like the question at hand, and not to like criticize 2JZ Nagini, because I'm not, but I do think it's interesting because it is a different generation. And it's like, maybe like all the struggles that you have ahead of you that you feel like are struggles are probably part of the thing that you're going to remember. Is like, in the end, if you're young and you're building a car in Vancouver, your story might actually be like, the cops were like, yo, you can't fucking do this. And you're like, yo, fucking try me, because I'm about to. And like, and it's like, and then I got a ticket and I had to fix it all. Or I didn't. I got away with it, you know, but like,
yeah,
I don't know. Like, I don't know if I would trade any of it for anything else, I guess. And I think it'd probably, the friends you made along the way is what our friend Eric Weber would say. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a very interesting thing. I do think that it is important. Actually, you know what I was going to say? Ben from Australia that has written us in with questions, and one of his questions was about like, how do you stay motivated? If you remember that episode, like, and he's working on his car, putting in the new transmission and on like a new kit, and he's like, well on, like, I mean, look, he's got an event coming up. And he knew he had to do it, but like, he's well on his way to having that car ready to go, and it's like getting there. It looks pretty cool, and I'm fucking stoked for that. So I think it's cool to have people like, I don't think we affected it, but maybe we did, and maybe I'll lay my head on my pillow tonight and think that we did. That like, yeah, he's like fully building his dream. Also, that guy's probably in his glory days right now. And not even knowing it.
I mean, it feels like you're going to remember that, though. You know what I mean? Like, when you have that goal and you're trying to work towards it, and like you finally like see your goal realized, and like
get there.
That feeling of accomplishment will last forever.
I don't know. I think it's cool to like check in with people. Like, even 2JZ Nagini's in the middle of doing something really fucking cool. And it's, I don't know. I think like, yeah, all these dudes are like fully in it right now. I'm a little bit jealous, if I'm being honest. I wish I was in my glory days. But I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like, even for me these days, it's like trying to work on my car, period. It's like, it's extremely difficult. And back then, working on your car is just something you do. Like, you're going to go to work. After work, you probably work on your car. On the weekend, you probably work on your car. The only time you stop working on your car is when you want to go hang out with your homies, party, or drive your car. So like, you know what I mean? It was just like not a thing. You just do it, right? Like, it's not like you have to like make the time or take a chunk of or swap that time with some other shit that like is important too. But like you're like, no, my car is more important today than, you know, whatever the other thing may be. It's like, enjoy it, man.
I don't know how to word this, so I'm gonna try.
Word it, bud. Wordle.
Are you aware? This is gonna sound like a major fucking tire pump, so I apologize in advance. Are you aware of the legacy that you've left on your local car scene? Like both of you, specifically, both of you. Do you have any semblance of knowing like the impact that you made, or do you even think about that? Does that cross your mind?
I kind of always
you haven't made it yet?
I kind of always thought of it like, I guess I would be more, not more, but like I've thought about it more and I'm more aware of it, or I wish that I would have an impact on like the sedan style and sedan drifting style of the scene, the whole car scene versus just the local car scene. I don't know how much impact I've had or we've had on the local scene. But I would like to believe that we had some sort of impact on, you know, Cressida's, IS's, GS's, all that sort of like drifting scene. Because that's just been our shtick since literally the beginning, before any of it was a thing. So that's what I would like to believe that we had an impact on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't think about it very often. It's not like something that I'm thinking about. But I know Gerard and I have had talks in the past where and I swear we even said it on the podcast, where it's just like, you know, you remember seeing that dope car as a kid that like did that huge burnout, and like, you know, and then like maybe now you want to be that guy who like can set that spark for other people. Or like, I remember like when City Tech had their opening party, they were like, yeah, man, like we, you know, when we came to the block party, like that inspired us. And we always wanted to kind of have our own event like that. And like, you know, I remember people coming up to me and being like, oh my God, like I remember seeing like your crazy like rotary car driving around in Richmond, and like it was literally scraping the ground, and like
that's cool.
Like, that made me want to like build a car, or like, so like, you know, I feel
like I never had that.
Sometimes I hear the stories about like, oh yeah,
Gerard,
I saw you at Market Crossing and you're getting that VI and like throwing stickers out the sunroof, or what, you know. There's been a bunch of times like that where it's like someone mentioned something that I did in the past where I'm never thinking about like, oh yeah, there are other people in the world, you know, like experiencing this event as well. Like I'm just like living it through my own lens, you know.
Move along, peasant.
No, it's not even like that. But yeah.
It's mind blowing to me that I've been in Vancouver long enough that I was at the event where you were throwing stickers out your like sunroof. I came and talked to you when you were getting your VI. Anyway.
And Kevin said, move along, peasant.
No, I don't think Kevin, like, I have a much better understanding of Kevin now than I did then, but I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I was like, we're going to be friends someday. Doesn't matter what you think.
You wait.
Just you wait. This comment would be very hilarious if we were actually friends, but we're not yet.
What was the comment?
It's not funny. You had just made like you were being very gracious. You had just made a post about like reaching a certain amount of followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I had walked up to, for those that don't know, I have a very weird memory, and these are the things that I remember. I don't remember wins. I remember losses. And I remember walking up to you and being like, if you were like, essentially, I was like, if you were gracious for that, you're about to like, you're going to be a real big deal right now. And you're like, yeah. And I was like, all right, he doesn't care. But I was like, I essentially said like, you're about to blow up because like there's a crowd of people around you. You're getting a VI for being like this dope fucking car with this like crazy wheel fitment. We weren't friends yet. It wasn't as funny.
Yeah, what I was saying is I don't think I had that notoriety locally.
Oh, like, shut up. I remember approaching you and being like, I don't know what to do about my front grill. And you're like, cool. And then you drove away. So
in what car?
You were in your Aristo. We were in Richmond. It wasn't actually that bad. You were very polite, but I was like, hey, maybe you can help me with this. I think I've realized I had the benefit of this is a tire deflate, which is what I not usually do. not knowing your guys' impact on the scene. So I think maybe I approached you as if you were a regular person, which you are, but in the car
regular
world,
people.
that's a different thing. And I was like, I needed your help with like my front grill. Now, in hindsight, that's a dumb fucking thing to ask Gerard. I need like help with like wheel fitment and my suspension and like all the components that make the car actually work. And you were just kind of like, yeah, you're not super into it. But then I was like, oh, we'll be friends someday, Gerard. You'll see. We'll do podcasts. You can't escape me. And then we'll have glory days together. I
do remember like back in the day though, like when I had my Civic and when I had my yellow Cressida. I mean, these are so long time ago, but like I remember people being like, yo, I remember that yellow Cressida, like it was crazy. Or even like when I had my single cam Civic, everyone thought it was like a Type R motor or some shit just because I drove the living hell out of it. Every single time I hopped in, it was like 4,000 RPM or above, like super hard shifting, always, you know what I mean? Like you just drove it like it was a race car. So anybody that heard it would think it was like the craziest thing ever. Meanwhile, it's like stock with like a bunch of Chinese bolt-ons. And but yeah, like there were always people like, oh yo, like what do you have under the hood of that thing? And you're like, yeah, like an intake and like some headers are like $20 and like don't fit. And like, but yeah.
I don't know how to like intricately weave this into the episode, but like it's I've done my research now after accosting you guys and thinking that you were normal people in a parking lot. I was wrong.
Anyone standing around talking about cars in a parking lot is probably not a very normal person. So.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That is very fair. But then like, it's a whole world unto itself, and it's like, no, I think from my understanding, you guys had a giant impact on the local car scene. I think that there's probably generations of people that you've impacted that you don't even probably fully fathom.
That's pretty cool, man. Because like Kevin said, that I was that kid or that person, that young person at one point that got inspired by whatever car it may be, and just thought like, those people, like it's not like you idolize them, but like you idolize that sort of image of like being that person with that car.
Well, you get to see that person in their glory days to bring you
that's probably what it is.
You're like, that person's fully living the thing that I aspire to be. I believe the sentiment that you guys are trying to encapsulate when you say like kids seeing a car. Sean Carter, husband of Beyonce Knowles, Jay-Z has a line in one of his songs where it's like kids on the corner screaming, "That's my car." So it's like when you drive through the neighborhood and the kids are like fucking amped on your Acura Legend, and they're like, yo, I'm gonna have that one day. And that's fully the scenario. Actually, that's a fun question. I know, Gerard, your answer to this is you grew up in a small town in Manitoba, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't know the question, but yes, I did grow up.
That was the question right there.
Kevin, did you grow up in a small town in Manitoba? No. And you had in the past mentioned that there was a dude that had like two really cool like muscle
hot rods,
that would like roll out, and you would go check them out. Yeah. But when you were a kid and you were on the corner screaming, "That's my car," what were you screaming at? What was the things that were like?
Man, lots of stuff. But I mean, honestly, I love Trans-Ams because the Trans Am with the Firebird on the hood, and at that time that car was brand new, so it was like black with the gold and the crazy snowflake wheels and the spoiler and all that like pinstriping stuff. That car was wild, man. Like back then. And
all right, I got to stop you right there because I got this great tie-in. I saw a photo of a Porsche Taycan that had that like livery on it of like the Firebird, like and I like screenshotted it, and I was like gonna send it to you, and I'm like, no, I've made this up in a fever dream. That's not what Gerard's about. But now you've just reminded me that is fully what you're about. And I was like, yeah, I was gonna send that to him. for a reason. So past and future combined. Anyway, sorry. So you love Trans Ams. Go on.
Yeah, that was it. And I remember because like I grew up with my grandma, and we'd be walking around. I'd be like, "Hey, grandma, like that's the car." Like, and she always said like the back end, like it has the spoiler that's like, and in Filipino, it's a word. She said, "agmusmusiig." That means like it's kind of going like this, like the spoiler. I can't like describe that in English. Like, what is that face like? Your lips are kind of
like fish mouth or something.
Yeah, your lips are kind of pursed, and like the spoiler kind of looks like it's like doing that, like because it's
like a duck bill.
Yeah, it's like a full duck bill. Yeah, basically it's a duck bill. That's what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
So then she would always say that in Filipino. I was like, "No, grandma, it's like really cool." And she's like, "It's only 2 doors," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it's sick." You know what I mean? And like,
there's not even a lot of buttons in there, Gerard.
Hang on, whoa! You were into 2 doors, and your grandma was like, "No, you'll like 4 doors."
Yeah, probably.
Listen, young man Gerard. There's not enough real estate in that 2 door.
He's like, "How are you gonna fit people
BMX
in there?"
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about people. I just want to drive that car.
And then now you do, and then you don't care about coupes as much.
Yeah.
Kevin. Okay, sorry, Gerard. Keep going.
Oh, just one more thing to add is like honestly, like at that time too, I was so young. Like when we would vacation in the summers in Winnipeg, like I said before, we were right beside a body shop, and I'd see all these ridiculous cars coming out. But honestly, I didn't really know what they were. They just looked so nuts, and like they had all this crazy paint, engine sticking out. But like I couldn't tell you if one was like a Chevy 2 or like whatever back then. So like you couldn't really ask me. All I knew was the Trans Am, and it was like a new car that you would see the same car kind of often. So that's why I like the Trans Am. Anyways,
I would like to get a psychologist on the show to figure out why you like what point made you actually like. There's probably a simple answer, but I like to think that it's a complicated answer. To be like you shifted from like 2 doors to like station wagons. Because the truth that I've actually found over talking and doing this is that you like station wagons more than you like sedans.
Okay, but you know what?
You are the sedan king, but
it's bigger. It's got an extra door.
But also
more door.
It's a sedan with another door.
The guy in my town, the 2 cars that he had, one was a Nomad, which is a station wagon. So it's a 57 Chevy station wagon. So one of them was that, and then he had the other thing, which I think was a Nova. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like my brother's best friend growing up, his dad had a Nomad. He still does, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't love station wagons. Who hurt you, Gerard? No, I don't.
Just
Kevin.
for some reason they're cool.
No, I kind of got to agree with Gerard. It's like back in the day at that age, I couldn't have told you what any of the cars were. I just probably liked them because they didn't look like every other car on the road.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That also makes that fully checks out as a full Kevin answer. I mean, anyway, in my mind, do you have like a memory of a first one that where you're like, that's my car?
I honestly I couldn't tell you. Like,
oh really? Jeez. I'll answer this question myself.
All right, please do.
My brother had a barbecue when I was like 11 or 12, and all these like first generation in Regina, Saskatchewan import car tuner dudes showed up, and there's a line of cars.
I'm going to say Integra.
Like no. There's an Integra there for sure. GSR, it's on 17s. I've never seen anything like that. There's a Del Sol there. No, sorry. At that time, it wasn't a Del Sol. It was no, it was just like a hatch.
Okay, EG hatch.
93 hatch. Yeah. There's a Mazda MX-3 there. And this is a thing that's very funny. People on this podcast don't understand. I didn't drive a Mazda 3. I drove a Mazda MX-3 as my first car, which is a Presidia. And so one of my first cars was one of the cars in that lineup. It was like at this barbecue, there was a Mazda MX-3. I tried to get a 4-door Civic. It didn't work out for me. So I bought a Mazda MX-3. And that was the first car that I built. But yeah, like I think the more now that I've been drinking and I think about it, that event probably was the moment where I remember being like, oh yeah, like sitting there and being like, that car's dope, that car's dope, that car's dope. And then it kind of makes sense that the first car that I chose to drive and modify was a Mazda Presidio with a V6 engine in it. What a waste of time it was. But anyway, I
Good
did
time,
that.
Vid. That's good time, Vid.
Is that what you told yourself that if you went back?
Fuck. I don't know. Man, if I could go back and, like, see, Kevin, you got it right. Like, if I could go back and tell myself, I'd be like, hey, dumbass, don't spend that much money on like a 92 or 93 Mazda Presidio MX3 V6. Buy an 8.6, like buy a Toyota 8.6 and put like just really wide wheels on it and lower it. And it's like nobody will know what you're on right now, but like in 10 years you'll be a fucking hero. And it's like, you don't know those things, right? So you buy a weird car and you put big wheels on it and a body kit.
Was that the one you had the TSWs on?
Yeah, I had TSWs on that car.
You don't have any photos of that thing, do you?
I could find some. My parents have photos of it. That was before like digital photos.
Yeah, my parents have photos of it.
Yeah, there's a photo album.
I know.
I had to submit photos of that car to get into like not a hot import nights. It was like a car show in Saskatoon. I had to like submit photos of my car.
I wish I had photos. I don't know where they are now, but I wish I had photos of my Capri, my Pinto, and all those other cars that I used to have. I'm sure there's somewhere, but like I was just the worst at keeping like physical photos. I never had photo albums or any stuff like that. So yeah, they're all probably fucking gone. Cortina wagon, all that stuff.
It's actually really funny to think back to like 18-year-old me or like 19-year-old me with like an actual film, like SLR camera being like, I'll just take these photos to get into this car show. And like, that's not the way your life's going to go. Like you're going to be mostly interested in taking those photos. And like, but had I known, I would have taken better photos. Kevin, you don't have like a car that you saw that like really like lit the fire?
I mean, it's definitely like later on, and I was like fully into cars, but like the Viper was like definitely like the car where I was definitely obsessed with that car for a while. Like always wanted one. Yeah,
you should get one.
How could you not?
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where you like don't meet your idols, maybe, you know.
I mean, a lot of people are super into Vipers still. It's kind of weird. Like, I mean, it has to probably be the latest one, but like, I think they're probably pretty sick, man.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely probably pretty sick, and like even like I don't know, you still whenever I see one, I still get like kind of excited about it. I'm like, whoa, like they're still like a fairly rare thing. Like I see way less Vipers than I do like any Lamborghini,
McLaren, anything.
And yeah, like exactly, like.
Yeah.
And a Viper is basically borderline kind of like a hot rod anyways. Like
yeah, exactly. You know that guy is kind of crazy. Like you know, like
but also yeah, it's like like as far as
loose.
Go on.
I was gonna say that Gordon was super into them or is super into them.
Yeah.
And I feel that he was looking a while back and they were like $50K or so.
I mean, at this point they're probably super expensive, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say like in the realm of like quote unquote supercars or whatever you want to call that car is definitely like the, you know, shirts, t-shirt, rolled up sleeves, like cigarette pack outlaw of the fucking supercar world. You know what I mean? It's brash and kind of like
car.
I wouldn't even call it a supercar, but yeah,
whatever. I mean,
it feels like it could hang with supercars though. So
yeah, like if you could call a fucking NA1 NSX a supercar, a Viper most definitely is a supercar. I mean, I'm talking like a newer one. I mean, the original one, I'm sure it was designed to hang with supercars, but I think in reality, it just did donuts and wipeouts.
I think the original one was built out of like, they just went to the bins and were like, what do we got left that we can build like a cool car?
Yeah. But I mean, there was like the, you know, the Viper ACR and all that stuff, the later model stuff that was actually like probably pretty sick.
I can't believe they made a whole show based on the fact of a Viper. Like it was like It was
I mean,
like
there's
Knight Rider
those.
with a Viper.
I mean, there's like Airwolf and all those other weird shows, man.
Yeah, but
Those
that
are
makes
about
sense.
nothing.
It's fucking helicopter. Viper is a Viper.
It's a car that it transforms, bro. It's basically a kit for the new generation, you know?
But it wasn't a robot. Like they were like, it doesn't have robot capabilities.
It didn't have robot. That's what made it more realistic, you know?
Yeah.
Except that it transformed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World wasn't the voice of the computer, so it's more believable all of a sudden. Anyway,
They should just put Topanga on it.
I didn't follow him, but I did see this dude on Instagram has like a complete, I think he's Canadian too. He has a completely like functional replica of like Kit. And that's his like shtick is it's like, the car talks. It's got the like yoke steering wheel. It's got all the like buttons and shit on the dash. And like does a woo, 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 like in the.
I feel
the
like
grill,
there's a ton of those. So
of replicas, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like this one's also like IG famous. Like, kind of maybe it's like pretty nice and like modified and stuck versus like
okay.
Falcon GT, buddy.
One thing I was gonna say about the whole like glory days and getting old and stuff, it's like when do you know or think that you're kind of like over the hill, or like is that a thing? You know what I mean?
Yes, it is.
Because like,
what do you do when you're over the hill?
But are you? Because like a lot of the guys who, let's take Langley for example, with all the hot rod guys and stuff, like all those guys are super old, but like they're all super. Like a lot of them are really, really, really super into cars and like have crazy cars. And so, are they over the hill, or are they the anomaly where like there is no hill? They're just.
That's actually a really good question, Gerard.
Because I was kind of thinking, for example, like us, like, you're talking about the glory days. Like, yeah, we used to go drifting, blah, blah, this and that. And it's like, are you still relevant because you have a business, or are you still relevant because you're like still into cars and build sick shit, or are you irrelevant? Like when do we become irrelevant? Like what are you still doing, Gerard? Like after you've, built these Cressidas and these Aristos, but like, what do you do every day now? You just drive your SUV and like, you know what I mean? That's kind of why it was like a big deal for me to drive the Blit all winter and go snow drifting in it, because it's like, I think that's sick, but also it still keeps me in tune with the fact that I'm a huge car guy. And like, if I didn't do that, I would feel like, like that drug addict part where it's like, something's actually missing. It's like, you don't have that thing anymore.
No, I mean, if I didn't take photos or make videos of car-related things or talk about cars, I would probably be a very, very sad person. So, but that is, there's a deep dive here, and maybe I'm wrong. I could be. I'm always wrong. Maybe it's different. They exist. Muscle car guys exist out of like the Langley guys that Gerard is describing are like the muscle car guys that are probably in their 50s or 60s or 70s. And they exist outside of a time of like social media, and the sense of relevance probably doesn't weigh on them as much. Right? Like,
yeah. And maybe they're just doing their own thing. Imagine
they don't probably have an Instagram account dedicated to their car or their business, or care about how many views they get on a story or how many likes they get or what's happening. But like, and they're probably better for it, because like
what I'm saying is
relevance based on interaction with other people, engagement. Yeah.
But you could probably take, I don't know, 5 to 10 of those crazy cars, or those dudes with crazy cars, make an Instagram account, and like half the world would probably be like, yo, that thing's ridiculous, or like anything related to that car.
Yeah. Except for the wheels. Because I heard a funny term, and it was called boomer wheels.
Yeah, I had this one customer back when I was at Mopac Gym, and like the craziest car, I think it was a 55 Chevy or whatever, but like, he had just bought every single possible thing you could build. And he had this like crazy big block engine, something, 671 or 871 blower on the top, like everything you could buy. And I think it made like 1,300 horsepower. And like he was buying axles, diffs, and shocks, and links, and back half kits. And the thing was ridiculous. Never taken it to the track, just like a super, super crazy car. You take it out to the Langley Drive, the Langley Cruising or whatever. But like anybody in the world that would see that car and the attention to detail, I mean, he's probably been building it for 15 years, but like they would just be like floored at, you know, like that, how crazy that car is, or like the attention to detail or the parts it has or whatever. Like, yeah.
This actually brought up a point that I was thinking about, and I'm glad you said this because it reminded me. So we are at this point where we've talked about it at length, where like these cars that we adore are becoming more and more expensive. And it was funny because our mutual friend Carter Jackson was listening to an episode, and he messaged me and he was like, just weld your diff. And I was like, no. I want to buy like the proper part and do it properly, because like I'm not playing with what is valued as a $8,000 car anymore. Now I'm playing with what is valued at like a $20,000 car. And that got me thinking. It was like, it seems really weird to be spending like shit money. Yeah. No. I think at this point, and Gerard, you made a very excellent point in an episode, probably like 5 episodes ago, where you're like, everything I do on a car now almost feels like an investment, where you're like, oh, like nobody ever recognized this shit that I did. Like I put like suspension in, and you know, you'd go to sell a car and people would be like, everybody knows if you build a car, that's just, you're throwing away money. Like you're only going to get the value. But it's like, no, we don't live in that world anymore. Right. Like everything has inherent value or whatever, subjective value. And it got me thinking, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or think differently, but when Carter was like, just weld the diff, and I was like, no, like I don't do anything with this car, but it feels weird now to be like, I would just weld the diff in like a $25,000 car or whatever. Like it's like, no, it feels like I should actually put the money into the parts to properly build this car. Like it seems, I guess what I'm saying, like, is now the time to actually be investing in car parts, like as a guy that has.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely not a bad, it's I wouldn't say it's the worst investment. You know what I mean?
Like I'm in a lot of groups, and this is not attached to you guys, but like I've seen people and they say a lot of nice things about SerialNine parts, and it's like, hey, I want to do this and this and this to the car, and it's like, yeah, SerialNine, like SerialNine, and it's like, and is it fair to say that you guys you're kind of like the boutique brand of things, right? Like that, yeah. I would say so. And it's like that now to me, unless I'm very off base with everything, like Gerard, you and I were even talking about like intercoolers for my car the other day.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up.
Yeah, and it's like, where is the line? Because now everything feels a little bit more like an investment, and you're not used to that. Like it used to be okay to be like Megan, however you say it.
Yeah, that's just it. Like we were just talking about an intercooler that I saw on Facebook Marketplace from a dude partying on an Aristo, and it's like, it looked like a fairly no-name intercooler. It had like steel piping. You know, it wasn't great, but it was like $200. And like, yeah, in the past, maybe that would have been a good idea, because it's like, yeah, I have a front mount intercooler, and like, it just sort of brings me back to like when you get a car from Japan and like it has the boxes checked, but like you kind of wish those boxes weren't checked because it's just kind of a piece of shit, and like you still have to buy the part anyways. Like, so what, it has an intercooler, it's a crappy intercooler, the work was bad, you don't want to keep any of the piping, so like you're basically buying an intercooler anyways. But like, oh, sick, it came with the intercooler, you know what I mean? So it's like you said, like, okay, the Greddy kit was say $1,000, and like when you go to sell that car previously, they'll be like, oh yeah, it's got a front mount, don't care if it's Greddy, don't care if it's Blitz, don't really care about it, but does it have a front mount? But now it's like, well, I have a Greddy intercooler on this, and it's a specific, JZS 161 intercooler, bolts right in, real nice kit, everything fits. And that's worth something to the next guy.
Huh.
And it's worth something because it's a quality, well, quote unquote quality part. It's a fitting part. It's not butchered. And be like, yeah, if you don't believe me, you buy the intercooler. And it's like, well, fuck, now this guy's going to have to spend $1,300. But you're basically getting $700 to $1,000 worth of value for that intercooler.
Yeah.
So it's like an addition on your house almost.
Yeah. I even think about it now too. It's like, we publicly talked about this, how I thought I had an R154, but I have a W58. And even then I'm like, that's probably not a great, it's like, oh man, could you imagine I post that car for sale? I'm not, but I do. And then you have to be like, it has a W58 transmission. And then I have to defend the fact that this car has a W58 transmission.
Yeah,
exactly.
For this weird, I'm now asking, we'll say I'm not, but hypothetically asking $25,000 or $30,000 for this car, and people are like, I'd never pay that for a W58 transmission.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
If it had an R154 or a CD009 or whatever, it's people probably wouldn't question that as much. They'd be like, yeah, sick, cool. And the weird thing that we've gone.
People also just find any excuse to try and devalue what you're selling.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, it's the blue color. Nah, man. If it was white, I would have paid that money, but since it's not, it's you were never paying for anything, buddy.
You were just here.
You're kicking tires.
I do feel maybe the W58ness devalues the 5-speedness of your car. You know what I mean? It's it's thick, but just like that other dude when he
swallow. No, go on.
But when he brought we had a customer bring over a 6-speed Supra, and so he gets it here and he's all stoked, and then he blows the tranny after 3 days, and it's what happened? And we look, and it's a J160. So yeah, it was a 6-speed, but it was the absolute smallest transmission Toyota makes behind the biggest engine Toyota makes. So it was basically, and then we look back on auctions of the same car, and it used to be auto, and it was swapped, obviously hastily and cheaply. So I would have just rather taken that car as an auto Supra when it got here, because the transmission swap did absolutely nothing for the value of the car.
It's it's a very funny thing, and I know we kind of went through this, but as in America, everything is on a bigger scale, and it feels like they're kind of going through that right now with all their right-hand drive imports. Buy this car, but it's super clapped out, and you don't know, and it's
same with Danny's car too. It's a chaser. Original JZX would fetch a huge amount of money, but now it's manual. It's 5-speed swapped. Same thing. It's a W58. It's also the Soarer box, so it's got the wrong extension on the shifter. And it works. Yeah, it's thick. Yeah, you can drive it. Yeah, you can clutch kick it. But it's it wasn't done by us. And I can't say it's the best job ever, nor is it the correct tranny. So it's kind of probably would have just rather, if I was buying the car, bought it as an auto.
And done it yourself.
Done it myself.
Yeah, what a weird time to be living in, where we can you can write off putting in quality parts in a car. Now more than ever, I think it feels I don't know.
Yeah,
that was my takeaway from this week, where I was just I'm hesitant to do cheap things to my car. I'd rather take the time.
Well, also it's the end goal isn't so you can cut donuts and stuff. It's getting a welded into your car isn't the most important thing. You don't need the diff the fastest, the cheapest you don't need it for next week, No, it's you might as well just save up and do it nicely and do it properly. It says something that's going to be nice to drive on the street, which is where you drive the car.
Yeah, exactly. Which is how I feel about it, but it's weird times. I don't know.
Yeah.
And for example, building the Blit as a street car, there are a lot of nuances, and you're building the thing. I didn't buy a JZX1 and put an R154 in, which probably would net you a pretty nice car as if Toyota built it. But like, since we were building it from scratch, it used to be a GX. Now it has a 6-speed. It has, this and that. Like, it had the small sway bars. Now it has, you got to do the sway bars. You got to do the steering rack. You got to do all this stuff to make it proper. And I feel like a lot of people, when they build cars, they don't care. They just slap all the parts in, whatever, and like whether it works or not, or whether it's like a good car to drive, or whether it not, like it like gives you the feeling in which.
But also, if you've never driven a JZX and you buy a GX that has it swapped, you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and also maybe you're not a nuanced person like a super anal guy like Gerard, who like notices every little thing. And there's like, yeah, this car's sick. It rips. It's got a 1J, like sick. You know what I mean? It's like, well, it doesn't actually feel that great. Like,
see, but I think this is what I don't know, but I feel like we're going to be in a territory where people are buying the final product and not the accumulation of everything, but they'll be buying the final product. So now if you tell me, obviously I have a giant bias because I have a proximity to you guys, but if you're like, hey, I got this Blit for sale and it's got a 6-speed, but it also I've swapped X, Y, and Z, so it's in line with this, and it has a 1J in it attached to blah blah blah, and it has this diff, and how do you know if you're over the hill?
I mean, if you're just not doing car stuff anymore, man, or you're not doing.
Do you think that's what it is? I don't know if that's what it is. I continually feel like I'm over the hill.
Well, when people don't follow you on Instagram anymore.
That's my problem. Is that a measure though? Then is that like, because that's an interesting thing on its own, is that we're using other people to tell us where we are, which isn't a bad way to measure things.
I feel like it's just like maybe it becomes uninteresting to those people, because I mean, it depends on what they followed you for, but I assume in the car world, they're following you because you had certain types of cars and certain levels of builds. But like, if your page transitions from like sick, super crazy car builds to like, your 2-year-old or your newborn kid and like puppies and like nature shots, you're probably going to get unfollowed. So I don't know if that means you're irrelevant, but you're probably irrelevant in the car world. You know what I mean?
So it's funny, because Dodo Logic, that page has a harder time growing than than like me as an individual, which I think is actually directly linked to this podcast.
Mm-hmm. So Dodo Logic is not linked to the podcast, but Ryan Benoit is.
Yeah, it's like people are more interested in the person that talks to you, that talks on this podcast than they are in what that person outputs into car media.
Yeah.
Which is fair. Like, it's all about access. Like,
well, that's the only thing too. That's the other thing too. It's not personable. That's like you following like Diesel, or like you following like Gucci. Who the fuck is Gucci? Gucci's nobody.
But people follow them.
No, of course, but it's because they're interested in the stuff. But like, if you could follow like the head guy of Gucci, or if you could follow, instead of Thomas Ford, the brand, you're following Thomas Ford, and you see how much of a weirdo he is, or something, something similar to that.
Yeah. Like how he creates. If you get to see behind closed doors.
Yeah, because it's the corporate versus the creator. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Does that determine if you're over the hill, though?
I don't know, man.
Because then that doesn't apply to the Langley guys that we said, like this 50 to 60.
Exactly, because they weren't even on the hill according to Instagram.
Right. So, man, that's a lot to unpack that I can't even wrap my
Maybe
head
it's just
around.
like if you just don't really do car stuff anymore, man. Like, if for those car guys, the Langley, like non-IG hot rod guys, like maybe they sold off their cool car, and maybe they just. It's kind of one of those things where, like, if you met that dude, like maybe it's your kid's dad, or your friend's dad or something like that, but like somehow you just don't even know he's into cars until that one day when he's washing his like $200,000 1,300 horsepower 1955 Chevy, and you're like, yo, like, you have this thing, And he's like, yeah, man, like I've had this for 30 years. And you're just like,
Yeah.
whoa, like, but yeah, he doesn't go to the Langley cruising anymore, or he doesn't go do burnouts at the, he doesn't take it to the track anymore. Like, it's just like
maybe there's a lot here to like think about. Like maybe the Langley cruising was their version of Instagram.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's
yeah, absolutely.
it.
I mean, it definitely is, like, because every year you'd bring the crazier and crazier cars. Like, that's how you'd see it. There used to be another party. I can't remember what it was called, man, but like, I went to it a couple of times, but it was like an invitational hot rod, huge barbecue in Langley. And like the who's who and the what's what would all be there, and they'd bring their cars. And it was like wild, dude. This was when I worked at Mopac and I was into like real hot rods, and I would do work for like these people. And they would debut cars there and all sorts of stuff. And it was like, that was, like you said, their version of Instagram, or their version of like,
Man, I kind of wish Kevin's computer didn't die, because the question is, who's going to do that for us? Like at the end of the day, because anyone listening to this would be like, oh, maybe Gerard's only concerned in like Instagram followers. And I can assure people that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the game, but I don't think that's the case. Who is going, like you said, it was like a who's who of the barbecue, like there's this barbecue and it's a who's who of the hot rod scene. Who's going to do that for us? Realistically, Gerard and Kevin, who is not here anymore because his computer died. Our culture currently isn't set up to like carry on after you become irrelevant on the internet.
Say the beginning part again.
Our car culture that you and I exist in, currently isn't set up to exist after you become irrelevant on the internet. Right? Like there isn't a local thing that means anything as much as
Instagram,
the social currency of Instagram or
TikTok or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because there's nothing. I mean, I do think we're part of like the US scene. Like we definitely are part of like the Seattle scene and stuff. And
we haven't been for 2 years.
No, but I mean, like, I think generally in the grand scheme of things we are. So like when I brought my car to Wegfest, I felt that was a pretty big deal because like I've been to that show a bunch. I respect the people that put it on. I respect the like judges, and I respect the level of car builds that exist at that show. And for me to bring my car there and do well, I felt like it was a pretty good measure of, whatever that car was, because it's like, that show exists in many different cities in the States. And generally it's like the creme de la creme cars. So it's like, if your car goes there and like does pretty well in the grand scheme of cars in, the United States, it's probably, within the top 30% of something, you know what I mean?
Right.
Whatever that may mean to you.
But here's the thing, Gerard. That was at this point 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's a wild thing. I posted a thing on Instagram from that show and I was like, this feels like it was forever ago. And our mutual friend, Eric Weber, replied to me and he said, yeah, that's because it was. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe it was. Like that was a pretty long time ago. You're only as good as your last show in what we do, but then like there's this sense of like every year you need to be doing better than you did last year.
Depends how much better you are than the show median. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It still doesn't really answer the question though. Like if you don't go to Wakefest, then are you irrelevant? Are you?
No, not at all.
Yeah, but then what? Like if you start losing followers, if you don't get as many views, is that how we're measuring things? Or Is it about what you do in your turn, like, or is it
I
the
mean, for
company?
me, I feel like for me, like for example, like how it was such a big deal for me to drift the blimp this winter or drive it in the snow. I feel like for me, there's definitely been times when I've felt like maybe not over the hill, but like felt. I feel it's like for a car guy when you sort of don't feel that like euphoria of cars anymore. You're just like driving some mundane sort of generic piece of shit, going to work and back, and like there's no more semblance of like excitement in your car world anymore. So like you've kind of just like faded, yourself.
Mine is different though, because like, so one, I still have the car that I love.
Mm-hmm.
I take photos of you drift and Kevin drift and do media stuff for you, which is fulfilling. But I find whenever I go to write an article now, which I do less and less and less of, that it's me reflecting back on like how things were. Like, I'm not talking about events as if they're new.
Yeah.
It's like I've lived everything before and now I'm revisiting it as like this 37-year-old compared to like this like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed like 25-year-old, the 26-year-old, the 27-year-old who is seeing the world through like brand new eyes. And like I've said it to Jake, and I don't know if I've said it to the other checkpoint guys, where I'm like, you guys are in your glory days. Like, you're gonna look back at this. The things that you're doing now, you probably won't be able to do forever, or maybe you will, but like, man, like this is it. Like, you guys are kind of doing it, and that's how I feel, that I'm a little bit over the hill and then like a little bit removed from everything. I know that's not entirely the case, but it's like I'm watching people experience things for the first time, or different things that maybe I don't connect with as much for the first time, and being like, oh shit, like they're doing it like I did back in my glory days. And I think that's the tough part.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that too, for sure. I mean, I guess it's all like how your outlook is too, right? Like for me, it's kind of like you said, like when do you know, like the glory days, right? Like you talk about the glory days. So like really, if you're over the hill, the glory days are past, but the glory days are like long gone, or the glory days, you know what I mean? Whereas like, I guess if you look at it, like I look at it, where it's like shit kind of just, it doesn't all necessarily get better. It just gets different, or it doesn't really get worse. It just gets different. So I guess for me, as long as I'm still having those experiences or experiencing new things and exciting things,
Right,
then I'm not over the hill. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that as well. Like I said, it's peaks and valleys. And like I said earlier, dividing my life into like segments where it was like Hot Boys or Good Vibes or SerialNine. Each of those are a different experience. When I did stuff with Hot Boys, it was like I was seeing the world for the first, like the car world for the first time.
Yeah.
With Hot Boys, or sorry, with Good Vibes, it felt like I had a little bit of knowledge of what was like people were going through, or like what it, like if you were, when I was covering them and like talking about like what it meant to be in the limelight, kind of like I had a better sense of it because I wasn't just living it in the moment with the people. And then SerialNine stuff is very different because like a lot of the stuff I do with you guys doesn't necessarily like have my name on it, if that makes sense. Right, like it's like more of like a behind the scenes type thing, which I'm totally fine with, because in my mind that's like a sense of like you're actually doing what you're meant to be doing. Yeah, each of those have very different instances. It's peaks and valleys. Every part of those segments have things where I'd look back and be like, yo, that was really cool, or like that was like the glory days. And like even pre-Hot Boys, there's like things that are like when Total Logic started out, where it was like, yo, that was the glory days. I guess it's, the important thing is to define success on your terms. And I think you did that very well in one episode. And I thought about that a lot after, because I think it, but I never have actually put words to it. And you said it the best way. It's like, so I exist in a world with coworkers that don't care about cars, and everyone talks about all the places that they've traveled and all the things that they've done. And then I sit at the table with them and I say, yeah, no, I haven't been to South Africa. I haven't been to Egypt. I haven't been to Japan or blah, blah, blah. But I have been to this track in Wisconsin that you've never heard of. And I saw people do this thing that you don't care about with an elite group of other people that all have the same vibe and like sense of like relevance and importance tied to it. And they're like, that doesn't make sense to me, but it makes so much sense to me. It's like, no, I've witnessed a thing that like probably not everybody will ever get to witness again. You know, like I've been to Rome and looked at all the sites, and hundreds of thousands of people have been through there, and they've all seen, you know, what history has to offer. But like, there's a very finite group of people that will go to Wisconsin, stay in this small town, and go to Final Bout and see what that means. And like, you and Kevin are two of the people that understand that. And I think you kind of said that, like, you're not necessarily rich in money, but you're rich in experience. You've driven these cars, you've seen these things, and you've experienced these things. And it is interesting to think that that is a level of currency in the world that we exist in. And
honestly, a lot of times it's worth more because, like, for example, like you can pass money on to your children or grandchildren or whatever, but like it's kind of worthless. Like money is money. You know, they could piss it away on drugs or, you know, buy stupid like snowboards and shit. But like knowledge, for example, like if you can share experience and knowledge and stuff with them, or stories, or like influence, that's worth a lot more. Like that, you're literally shaping their fucking lives, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like money can't really shape, like money itself can't really shape lives. Obviously the things that money can get you shapes lives, but like your insight and your experiences leading to your stories or your influence on them shapes their lives.
Yeah.
Anybody's life, people around you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're definitely very rich. Like if you have a lot of experiences and a lot of knowledge and a lot of insight, you're very rich. And you can make other people rich too.
Yeah, it is funny though, because I guess the thing that I learned was like that richness doesn't transfer to everyone, right? Like
it's very specific.
It's a very specific currency, but well worth it if you value that currency.
But I mean, the travel is the same thing. Like if you talk about food or beer or traveling, or, you know, like these sites that you saw somewhere, that's the same thing. Like those are translatable to like normal people versus, like you ever been to Shawano and like, you know, the uphill curve and taking the photo of like all the cars in third gear, like that's super sick. It's like, well, there's a very small amount of people that are going to get that. But, you know, the sunset on a certain beach in like Hawaii or whatever that you've experienced, maybe you brought like a certain kind of chips or something to eat there. That's, you know.
I will say this, and all the things that I've seen of like, I feel like I'm pretty good at remembering the glory days.
Yeah.
Not a lot of them. Look, I've been to Europe. I've seen things. It's very nice. I'd go back. I'd enjoy it again. There's never been a moment there where when I was in Europe, I didn't stop and I wasn't like, oh, this is amazing and I'll never get this moment again. Those moments generally have come to me either when I'm with my family. A lot of other ones are car things where I'm like, this will probably never exist again in this way that it has, you know, like, and so yeah, I don't know. I guess that is kind of it. So I don't know if that currency though transfers over to like not being, you know, like how do you know you're out of it, or how do you know like you're over the hill? But I guess,
I mean, it could, if you're no longer gaining any moments, transferable experiences.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Agreed. If you're no longer gaining any transferable experiences, that's how you know you're over the hill. And that's a fair point. I can live with that. find new things and the
Yeah.
things that you love, and you'll never be over the hill.
There you go.
Perfect. That's a good place to end. All right, we got there. I'm very glad that we found that. Thank you for providing that answer to me, Gerard. I'm very sad that Kevin's computer died.
I know. It sucks.
But all right. So thanks for listening to Serial Podcast 9. This is
Thank you very much.
a crazy episode to cut, but I'm very excited for it. All right. Check you later.
Peace out, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Serial Podcast 9.